Right now, at this exact moment, the United States government is paying more than $1 trillion every single year in interest. Not to reduce the debt, not to fix the system, not to invest in the future, just interest. That number is so large that most people can't even picture it. $1 trillion isn't just a lot of money. It's a scale so extreme that the human brain almost refuses to process it. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you nearly 3,000 years to spend $1 trillion. And the US government is paying that much every year, just to stay current. This isn't a future warning. This isn't a projection. This is happening right now, quietly, automatically, without a vote. And once a country reaches this point, history shows something unsettling. There is no clean way out. For decades, Americans were told not to worry about the national debt. We were told it was manageable. We were told the US could always handle it because the economy was strong, innovation was constant, and the dollar was dominant. And for a long time, that story made sense. In the year 2000, total US debt sat around $5.5 trillion. Interest payments were noticeable, but not overwhelming. In 2010, after the financial crisis, debt climbed past $13 trillion, still high, but survivable. Then came 2020. Pandemic spending changed everything. Debt jumped from $23 trillion to $27 trillion. In a matter of months, emergency programs were created, trillions were borrowed. Interest rates were near zero, so the pain wasn't immediate. But debt doesn't care about timing. It waits. By 2025, total US debt crossed $38 trillion. And as interest rates rose, the cost of servicing that debt exploded. That's when the real problem began. Debt is passive. Interest is aggressive. Debt can sit quietly on a balance sheet for years. Governments can refinance it, roll it over, pretend it doesn't matter. Interest cannot be ignored. Interest is a bill that arrives every year. And it arrives no matter what the economy's doing, no matter who's in office, no matter how optimistic the headlines sound. Once interest becomes one of the largest expenses in a government's budget, the system changes. From that moment on, policy decisions stop being about growth and start being about survival. Here's the key moment most people miss. When interest payments are small, governments still have flexibility. They can invest, they can adjust, they can make long-term decisions. But once interest becomes a dominant expense, flexibility disappears. More tax revenue goes to the past instead of the future. Less money is available for roads, schools, defense, healthcare, or innovation. The government starts running just to stand still. This is the moment when countries quietly lose control, even if everything looks stable on the surface. For years, the US benefited from near zero interest rates. Borrowing felt painless. Trillions were issued with barely any cost. But government debt doesn't last forever. It matures. And when it matures, it must be replaced. Now it's being replaced at much higher rates. That means even if the government magically stopped borrowing tomorrow, interest costs would still rise for years as old low-rate debt gets replaced with new high-rate debt. This is called rollover risk. It's one of the most dangerous dynamics in finance because it keeps worsening even when behavior improves. And it's already locked in. Once interest dominates, governments face three choices. They can cut spending dramatically, they can raise taxes aggressively, or they can borrow more. Spending cuts at the necessary scale would cause immediate political chaos. Social programs would be slashed, defense would be cut, infrastructure would decay faster. No modern democracy has ever survived that peacefully. Raising taxes enough to cover $1 trillion interest bill would crush economic growth. Capital would leave. Businesses would relocate. The tax base would shrink instead of growing. That leaves borrowing to pay interest, which increases debt, which increases interest. This is the moment the system starts feeding on itself. A common argument is that growth will save us, that a strong economy will make the debt manageable again. That worked in the past. It doesn't work at this scale for growth to fix the problem. The economy would need to grow faster than interest costs and faster than new borrowing at the same time. That's not happening. The US economy grows at roughly 2 to 3% in real terms. Interest costs are growing faster. Debt is growing faster. Growth has gone from being a solution to being a delay, and delays make the final correction sharper. When governments run out of options, they always reach for the same tool. They print. They expand the money supply. They suppress interest rates. They let inflation quietly reduce the real value of debt. At first, this feels almost magical. Stock markets soar. Housing prices explode. Asset owners feel richer. Politicians point to rising markets as proof everything is fine. But something darker happens underneath. Savings lose purchasing power. Wages fall behind prices. Everyday life becomes more expensive. Printing money doesn't eliminate debt. It redistributes pain. Inflation doesn't hurt everyone equally. It hurts people who save in cash. It hurts people on fixed incomes. It hurts workers whose wages can't keep up. It benefits people who own assets. It benefits debtors. It benefits those closest to the financial system. This is why inflation quietly reshapes society before it ever shows up in headlines. By the time the public notices, the damage is already done. Money works because people believe in it. When confidence weakens, inflation accelerates. Prices rise faster. Planning becomes impossible. Long-term thinking disappears. Governments try to manage it. They blame corporations. They blame supply chains. They blame foreign actors. They never blame math. History shows that once confidence breaks, inflation runs faster than policymakers can control. Always. America's reserve currency status buys time. It does not provide immunity. Spain had gold. The Dutch had financial dominance. Britain had global trade control. All believed they were protected. Reserve currency status delays collapse by allowing debt to grow larger. But that also means the eventual adjustment is bigger. That's the paradox. The privilege becomes the trap. This stage doesn't start with panic. It starts with quiet changes. Foreign buyers reduce exposure. Institutions diversify. Long-term confidence erodes. Life feels normal. Markets stay high. Headlines stay calm. That's why this phase is dangerous. By the time it becomes obvious, options disappear. History doesn't repeat exactly, but it rhymes closely enough to be uncomfortable. Once interest dominates, systems move toward financial repression, currency weakening, and forced adjustment. Sometimes it looks like inflation. Sometimes it looks like currency decline. Sometimes it looks like crisis. But it always arrives. Every empire says it. Spain said it, the Dutch said it, Britain said it. America says it now. Technology doesn't stop compound interest. Military power doesn't stop arithmetic. Innovation doesn't override math. Exceptionalism is a story empires tell themselves right before reality intervenes. This isn't abstract. When interest dominates, everything becomes more expensive. Savings lose value. Stability fades. Risk becomes mandatory. People who play by the rules feel punished. People who understand the system early adapt. This is why understanding interest matters more than understanding politics. These transitions don't take centuries. They take years. The shift from stability to instability is often invisible at first. Then it accelerates. The mistake most people make is waiting for confirmation instead of watching the math. By the time confirmation arrives, positioning is no longer possible. $1 trillion a year in interest is not sustainable. No country has ever crossed this threshold and returned to normal without major change. No empire has ever ignored this stage and emerged unchanged. The math does not care about belief. It does not care about confidence. It does not care about politics. It compounds. The people who survive these transitions are not the richest. They are the ones who see it early, the ones who understand the structure, the ones who adapt before adjustment becomes chaos. Interest is not just a line item. It's the signal. And right now, that signal is louder than it has ever been. History doesn't end with collapse. It ends with transition. Every major financial shift creates winners and losers, not because one group is smarter, but because one group sees it coming. The mistake most people make is waiting for permission, waiting for headlines, waiting for certainty, waiting until the change is obvious enough that it feels safe to act. But by then, it never is. The people who get hurt the most aren't reckless. They're responsible. They save. They plan. They trust that the system will keep working tomorrow the way it worked yesterday. And that's exactly why these moments matter. Because the real danger isn't panic, it's normalcy. It's believing that because things feel stable today, they will stay that way. It's assuming that debt, interest, and math can be postponed forever. They can't. The system doesn't collapse with a siren. It shifts quietly. And then all at once. The information is already out there. The data is public. The pattern is documented. Nothing in this video is hidden. The only variable left is awareness. So the question isn't whether change is coming. It's whether you'll recognize it early or explain it later. If this video changed the way you think about money, debt, or the future, subscribe for more content like this on the $1 Billion Standard. This channel exists to break down the numbers, the patterns, and the shifts that actually matter before they show up in your daily life. Because the people who come out ahead aren't always the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the clearest understanding.